kind of introduce myself and tell you what I collect, how I trade, and how I got into pin trading. To begin with, my name is Patrick and I live in Southern California. Living here is fortunate because I'm so close to Disneyland, Disney Studio Store Hollywood, Walt Disney Imagineering, and a few hobby shops that cater to Disney merchandise, so that allows me to have access to all this great Disney. I started to get into pin trading about 8 years ago in 2018. It started with visiting there with my husband, Brad, and my two nephews who were much younger at the time, 8 years ago. I think we were in a store and we saw a lot of merchandise and there was this wall of pins. I think it was in Adventureland, Westward Ho Company. And I saw, I had already had an Evil Queen pin from years ago, back when there was a villain store underneath the Sleeping Beauty castle. This was, it's like 10 years ago when it was still there, but I saw an old hag pin. I thought, oh, this looks pretty cool, I'm just gonna buy it and wear it. We went to another store and I saw another like old hag pin that I thought, oh, I didn't see that one, let me get this one too. So it kind of started like that. And then my nephew said, hey Pat, Uncle Pat, look at the Disney Pin Trader store. We were at downtown Disney. And it just started from there. And since then, trading and collecting pins. In terms of what I collect, I think if you've been following me on my Instagram page, you could see that I mostly collect villains. And it's just a select group of villains is what I collect. I collect Maleficent, so as you see behind me, there she is in her glory. I collect her dragon form too. I also collect the Evil Queen and the Old Hag and Chernabog, so that big demon devil from Fantasia on Nine on Bald Mountain. In this hobby, as most of you know, it's good to kind of keep focused in your collecting because there's so much out there and pins can be expensive and we only have so much money that we earn, so it's good to kind of keep it focused. And I'm glad I like those because they are all characters that for some reason or another really appeal to me. I like the aesthetic, I like the story behind them, and I think for another video we can all kind of go into the reasons why we like the characters we like, but for me, I focus on those. I first started trading in the parks, the Disneyland theme park. So first Disneyland, Disney California Adventure, and our trading spots changed throughout the years. I think I started at Little Green Men, and then it changed over to Zocalo Restaurant. The greatest part about it was multiple things. I think it was just meeting new people, and through this hobby, I've been able to meet new best friends for the rest of my life. And I think that I'm very fortunate because through hobbies we're able to connect through different people, across different ages, different genders, different cultures, different localities. I've traded in Florida, and so it's just great. I think it's because of the people. It's collecting in my blood because I have this almost this need or compulsion to to get the next new thing, in my collection. So for example, if a new Maleficent pin comes out, or if a new Old Hag pin comes out, a new Chernabog pin comes out, I'm gonna put out my traders and say I'm looking for it, because I tend to be a completist. Every pin that's ever been released of the characters I collect or we collect, I want to collect it and add it to the collection. Over the course of 8 years, I've been able to collect pretty much every pin of Maleficent, Evil Queen, Old Hag, and Chernabog that I know of, and I think Pinpicks has been a great source of information because, there's so many pins, and how are we to know what's out there, right? There's been pins released in 1999 prior and up to today, so Pinpicks really did help me create my wants list, and I just went off from there, and every time I went out trading, I would just look for pins I didn't have. In the beginning, the only traders I had access to were the ones that I could buy at the parks. Some of them were open edition, some limited release, some limited edition. But I began to learn pretty quickly that collectors and traders, we want the rare stuff, the limited stuff, the valuable stuff. The more I started to collect, the harder the pins were to find. You know, some of these were very low edition size, some were very expensive. Some belonged to people who only wanted certain things, you know, for them to trade that pin away. And I think, you know, we've all kind of come across certain collectors and traders like that. So I had to, I feel like, up my game. You know, I think a very well-known pin trader took me to the side and said, you know, Patrick, you know, your pins are great, but I see a lot of Fab 5 in here. I see some open edition. I see some park pins that everyone else has. So I thought, oh God, you know, my pins are good enough. So I decided to step up my game, and I think I remember looking through Big Fat Lanyard's trading book, and she's a hardcore pin collector and trader, and I'm like, God, I want my book to look like hers, because all her pins seem like kick-ass. They're from Paris or they're LE, they're high value. We go ahead and try to uptrade and go to the soda fountain events for their pins, become a D23 gold member so I could attend the Mickeys of Glendale pin releases, create a network of pin collectors and traders. You know, I mean, you can't just do this alone. You know, you gotta have friends, eyes looking out there for the pins you want. My traders, I felt, became a little bit more limited, more valuable, because up to this point now, if I find a pin that I want, like, I want to be able to offer you something that you can't refuse, you know, that you can't say no to. My trading philosophy is that I want good traders so that when I see something that I want, I'm able to get it right then and there, if I can. You know, and if I can't, then it's a discussion to start with the other person about what they want, and then that way I can kind of look out for what they want and then deliver that to them. I have a collection of pins that is probably in the high thousands, and I continue to collect and I continue to trade, and I think it's still fun. I have I guess my biggest hobbies is this and video gaming, and when I'm not doing this, I'm doing video gaming and vice versa. I wouldn't classify myself necessarily as a reseller. I do resell pins, and some of the pins that I do have, I like to move. I like to keep my traders relatively intact, to be confined to a few trader books. I think it's just a little easier for me, you know, for transportation, but also just to keep track of things. I'm glad that there are new pin outlets. So I know for a long time we had just WDI, DSF, you know, cast exclusive pins, but now there's this new entity, Artland, that's been creating these excellent, high quality, low edition size pins, and I don't think it's as known well in the community. I think some people associate it with Acme pins, and which also created excellent big low edition size pins. Acme became a little less popular and it kind of faded, even though the pins themselves still remain and are still gorgeous. But I think Artland has great pins, and I think I'm so excited because they really do seem like an enthusiastic group that wants to create pins that the community really likes. I think, you know, the pin community is pretty small, and people tend to you know each other, or if they don't know each other, they recognize faces, and they also associate their faces to their traders. And so for me, I think my traders were limited, and I wanted them to be high end, but at the same time, I wanted people to feel approachable. I mean, I want people to approach me, of course. You know, I think I'm a good guy. You know, anyone can approach me. It doesn't matter what type of pins you have. I mean, if they're hidden Mickeys to frame set pins. I mean, it's always good to take a look at someone's traders and just talk to them about what interests them and what pins they're looking for. And you know, even if I don't have something that I can offer them, or if they want something of mine that I don't see what I have, there's nothing in their book, it's still good to talk to them. And sometimes I trade not to up trade it, but I trade just for the sake of it, because I think securing a trade really engenders goodwill between the two parties. Even if, let's say, I'm not getting a pin for my collection, or even I'm just trading a trader for a trader, for at least one of us, or maybe for both of us, we both end up smiling. So I consider that sometimes. Maybe I'll get a second pin of one that I already have, so I can wear on a lanyard. So I have duplicate pins, and I do have that. I have several lanyards of pins that I already have that I store. Another thing I wanted to talk about in terms of collecting, how we display our pins and how we enjoy our pins. We all have our different reasons for collecting and for liking pins, and I'm always amazed to see the incredible ways that people display their pins, right? They create these fantastic cork boards and they theme it to a character or whatever, and then they organize them in a way that's just very visually appealing, and I love that. I really like to see people's collections displayed in a variety of ways, and it inspires me. I store my pins in binders, so wall space is very limited in my house. For another time, I really would love to share with you my art collection. And as you can see, this piece back here takes up an entire wall. So I sort of reserve my wall space for my art, and instead store my pins in binders. So maybe one day when I have more wall space, I'll be able to show them and display them and to enjoy them on a daily basis visually. I have artwork throughout the house. I'm taking it. There's artwork in the living room, there's artwork in the kitchen, there's artwork in my office space right here, and I have a studio. We have a studio in the back that has lots of artwork in that. And I even have a small little storage in the back that has artwork that I like, but I gotta make space for new ones. Just a little background on the art. I mean, Disney art's been around forever, and I think it's a little bit of a different ball game than pin trading because for me, I think it's because of the cost. I mean, the artwork by far is more expensive than the pins, but I think it's beautiful. I mean, if you go into Disneyana or the art of Disney Springs, Galaxy's Edge, there's boutique that has these beautiful trinkets, and artwork. And as we know, the artwork can go into the thousands. I ended up collecting like lithographs and just, affordable things. But then as time went on, I decided to try to see if I can invest in artwork, and I have. And I think it's been probably one of the most new life experiences for me. I think art collecting is an amazing thing to get into, and it can be anything. I mean, I like independent art, sketches, pencil sketches, paper art, paint on canvas, oil paint. I mean, anything that catches my eye. Look, I tend to keep my artwork focused on the characters I collect in pin trading. So that would be the villains of Maleficent, Evil Queen, Old Hag, and Chernabog. Speaking of the artwork behind me, it's the frame itself is metal, and it's almost this like barbed wire metal. There's a YouTube video of the artist Stephen Fishwick creating this piece, and he works with the welder to create the frame for the piece. Something to check out. I'd love to see if I can kind of share that video to you guys. As far back as I can remember, I remember when I was a kid, I went to a show, Disney on Ice, and I don't remember how old I was, but the one thing I did remember from that show was the Evil Queen. There was something about her presence that just transfixed me. Like my eyes just followed her, as she skated around, and Snow White and the drawers, everything's so happy, but then you had the stark contrast of this cold, beautiful, vain character. And I don't know, it's just something. I remember her character and her walking off stage or skating off stage. And when I visited the villain store at Disneyland, I saw a pin of her and I thought just to buy it. I wasn't even into pin trading at the time. I think this was my first trip to Disneyland when I was 16 or 15 years old. It's the only pin I ever had. So when I started to get into pin trading, I stuck with that character, of course. And then a college friend introduced me to Maleficent. He said that, gosh, if you like the Evil Queen, you're gonna love Maleficent. And at the time, I don't think I had seen Sleeping Beauty. I was 18 years old. I hadn't seen that movie yet, but I did. Was I hypnotized when I saw? Yeah, I was hypnotized by her. There was something about her presence, the charisma. But yeah, so I think Maleficent also has that sort of charisma and just the aesthetic of her, the colors, her outfit, the horns. I mean, there's I've been thinking a lot. So charisma, I just said, right? There's 3 pillars of charisma that I've learned, and people who are considered, or characters who are considered to be charismatic, tend to be very strong in these 3 characteristics: power, presence, and warmth. So a charismatic person tends to be very high on one or multiple of these. And in the case of Maleficent, I mean, when Maleficent walks into the room, everyone's head's gonna turn. Okay, like even Walt Disney himself would like kind of turn over maybe in his grave, and Maleficent somehow just showed up, and that's the presence of a character, is their commanding presence. Evil Queen has that as well. And then Chernabog, of course, is the big badass demon. I mean, my God, how can you not like that? And I like big muscles too. So as a newbie, I remember trading for a whole day, and when I came back, I looked at my pins and I looked on pin picks, and they gave me warnings like, oh, watch out, there's been scrappers, there's been fakes of this. Closely examined some of the pins that I got, and I thought, oh my God, this word is misspelled. The word Disney is misspelled on the back. And it just, I was so disappointed that day, because I spent all day trading and I got all these pins I thought for my collection, but knowing the fact that they were scrappers or fakes was very disappointing. So, and I saw most of that amongst the hidden Mickeys. Admin for a huge Facebook group, the Disney Pin Trading / Selling Group. We have over like 30 to 40,000 members, and we have a whole sheet that describes on how to identify fakes and scrappers. So as a newbie, I suggest first finding out what you want to collect, what characters you like, what attractions you like, or anything really, whatever you like, and start looking for it. And some people just collect. So for example, if you see something online, buy it for your collection, that's it. Or if you want to get into trading, then that will be an investment. I think I learned early that it does take a bit of investment of time and money to develop a set of traders. And you can get that in any sort of way. I mean, I know most people who trade pins do not live close to Disneyland or Walt Disney World or a Disneyland Resort Park to easily get these pins at cost, which would be ideal. Whenever you can get them at cost, that's what I suggest. So that means having access to the Disney Store online, participate in the Disney Studio Store, the DSF online pin releases. Of course, that's going to be luck, because it's a luck of the draw. If you get a good number, you're going to get the pin. So, look out for that. Also, consider becoming a D23 member, particularly a gold member, because you're going to have opportunities to purchase some pins or to attend events where very limited edition pins will be released. So, for example, Mickey's of Glendale would set up a pop-up shop in Walt Disney World, and D23 members have access to shop at that. So that's a great opportunity to just visit the park, but also to get these pins. If you don't have a lot of money to invest in pins, you start with pin trading with cast members if you can. If you're able to go to the parks. Look for hidden Mickeys. There's plenty of legit resellers that do sell pins that are $1, or bulk. And when I say reputable traders, I mean reputable in that they are trusted and the pins are authentic. They're authentic Disney pins, not these scrappers or fakes. And I'm happy to give anyone a list of people who I trust, who I know. That reminds me of the time when Frozen was huge. When Frozen came out in 2013, the pins were just off the charts. I mean, they were valuable. Everyone wanted them. And Mickey's of Glendale told us to not line up before a certain time. So of course, everyone, when that time hit, we all sprinted like the Olympics to the front gate. And I don't think the staff really liked it, and I think they ended up banning us for a while or something. But yes, I mean, sometimes you do got to run, to these for these releases. Even eBay. I mean, even with eBay, I would still suggest buying from reputable sellers, because it can be very easy to see a cheap pin and buy it and then realize it's a fake. So get to know people and always reach out. Like, I'm always here for advice or suggestions, in anything really. I have people asking me what my ideas on are the value of a pin. I can do some research and find out for you what the value of a pin is, or if you're looking for a pin, who may have it, or if I can help you get it in any way, that'd be great. So there's so many people. I mean, Fry Guy, Alice's House of Treasures, H. Pie Wolf, Young Queen, Big Fat Lanyards. These are all people who I know in the pin community and who I respect and who I've learned from, and they're great traders and people to trade with and to buy from. So I do recommend them as well. You can also visit, if you're in the Southern California area or wherever area you are, there's certain hobby shops that sell Disney pins. So for example, My D Pins, Josh Cordovan, he owns this shop, and he's got boards of authentic pins that you can buy like for $1, or a few for a few dollars, and it's great. Pins Breaks the Internet is another awesome one. I have a friend who I really like, a pin trader in London, who had a very cool creative way of displaying his traders. This is one, it's a page. So these are all LE100 Disney auction pins, and they're oversized pins, and they do not fit in the plastic sleeves. So, and here's another side of it too. There's a certain, when D23 Expo comes around again, or when it occurred, you're gonna make new friends just camping out for hours trying to get in. So it is good. I think all of us lead very busy lives. We all have things to do and other obligations. And in my career, I'm in medicine, so I work in a very busy medical clinic, and I have a full-time job, and I have a 30-mile commute each way, so a 60-mile commute round trip. So I'm very, very busy during the week. And even before COVID hit, I would try to go pin trade on Sundays at the parks. And between commuting for work and then going to pin trade, that would only leave like Saturday to kind of just relax for me. So it's a lot of time, and pin trading can take up a lot of your time, especially if you're a reseller, because it takes time to, or even a trader, take pictures of your pins, take pictures of your traders, to post them, to list the prices, to look up the prices, all that. There's a lot of different abbreviations that we use in pin trading. So so first of all, the first question was AP. So AP stands for artist proof. An artist proof pin is usually designated as an artist proof by an AP stamp that's usually on the back side of a pin. It could be either engraved or stamped onto it. It's usually engraved. And artist proof basically is the pin that is made and given to the creator, the artist, for its approval. So if an artist likes it, it's usually the pin that is going to be the production pin. So basically the final version of the pin that will be produced and that will be available to purchase and buy. Sometimes artist proof pins can have small variations compared to the production type, but not usually. Usually they're very similar to the production, and so that's the AP part. So LE stands for limited edition. And limited edition pins can range from anywhere from LE of 1, so one of a kind, all the way up to I think I've seen up to LE, I want to say 10,000, but there's been up to like, I'm sure like LE like 7,500 or something like that. But basically a limited edition pin is a pin that will just be gone, sold out once all the edition sizes of it are gone. So once they're sold out, and that's it. So those tend to be more higher valued because of that reason. In the lower edition size in general, the higher the value of the pin. So LR, or limited release, stands, those are pins that will be continually produced during the time of its release. So there's certain like seasonal pins, for example, or of a movie release or something. It'll say limited release on the actual card, the backer card, and meaning that you can keep buying the pin, and the stores or the parks will keep supplying the pin as long as for the duration of the limited release. And the amount of time that a pin can be released can range. It can range anywhere from a few months to almost up to a year, really. And though the edition sizes of those pins aren't known, but they're thought to be exceeding 10,000, so 10,000 plus. They won't be labeled as such. They won't be labeled as limited edition. It'll be limited release. So there's that. And then OE pins are open edition pins. Open edition means that a pin it's not limited, or it's not limited release. It will continually be produced. So there are pins in the parks that have been there for years, and you can continue to buy them. Certain Fat 5 pins, Mickey pins that are just classics and typically come on small backer cards, and you can see them not behind, like many of the limited edition pins you'll see in K's or behind the cash register in the parks, but the open edition pins will be there like on rollers where you can easily look at them and view them, and they tend to be a little bit more affordable compared to some of the limited edition pins, for example. The best source of value, so that in my experience, the value of a pin goes up the more it's wanted, the more it's valued, or the more it's desired. So the more people demanding or wanting it, then increases the value of it. And the value can also be increased by the rarity, the exclusivity of it. So a low limited edition pin, so an LE100 pin, or an LE200 pin, or LE250 pin. So the lower edition size, in general, the higher the value of the pin. The exclusivity of a pin can also determine its value. So what I mean by that is that there are certain pins that are not accessible to everybody. So for example, cast exclusive pins are made available to cast members. So cast members being employees of Disney. So some of these pins can be quite valuable, but some of them have to be earned. So for example, there's a series of pins called Magic Measures where Disney employees are given these pins based on certain quality metrics, like they did an outstanding job at something, or they made a certain sales cutoff, and they're given this pin that can only be earned, and some of those pins are very valuable. And then there's also pins that are given to members who have been Disney employees for a certain amount of years, for 5, 10, 15, 20, up to 15. I think there's cast exclusive pins, class member pins of 45 years, really, and so those tend to be very valuable. So in general, the value of a pin is determined really by its rarity, its exclusivity, and there's some people who are willing to pay thousands of dollars for a certain pin, and then most people will base the value on the most recent sold listings on eBay. But I think, to be fair, it's good to kind of look over the time frame. Just because one pin sold for $1,000 and it sold for about $700 like 20 other times before that, maybe take an average, something like that. So I tend to be flexible when I consider the value of pins. I think it's best to engender goodwill in doing that. I'm not always going to value a pin the highest it's ever sold. You kind of have to take a look. Or trading with the Florida peeps or the East Coast people, and I think that's great, because the trading can be a little different, in terms of the pins that you see and the style of trading. And create cross-country relationships with people for its own worth and to help you get the pins you want. In terms of pin trading, I mean, I would suggest going whenever there's an event that's sponsored by Disney or by Mickey's of Glendale, or when there's a big pin event that's organized. So for example, this weekend, the East Meets West event, there are monthly pin events that do take place in Florida. I do know in Orlando, organized by Mouse Pin Trading. And I've gone to those, and I love going to those. Every time I make a trip out to Florida, I always try to coincide it with one of these events to pin trade. There was that news that Disney had about suspending its annual passport program. I mean, that hit everyone hard. I mean, even us with passport, like there's a Premier passport that gets you into both parks, and even we were notified that our access to Disneyland will no longer be because they're suspending the program. And you know, I can see the reasons why. They want to crowd control, and perhaps I really do think it's just a matter of time before things get back to normal, meaning that they can accommodate larger crowds. But that of course will definitely depend on the COVID numbers, and those will go down the more people get vaccinated and the more people, you know, adhere to the guidelines put out there. I'm in the process right now of trying to create a shop on Instagram and a shop presence on my Diablopins page on Facebook. And it's more complex than I thought it would be, and also time consuming too. And so again, there's that balance of the career hobby balance. I think it's worth it. I mean, if you have pins to sell, I mean, it's a good extra amount of income you can get, depending on how much you do it. I would still keep your daytime job. I mean, there's some people who do sell pins full time, but in general, I think most of us have other means of support too as well. The Instagram live sales tend to be one of the best ways to sell your pins. That's just based on my experience. I think the people who do that tend to sell, to do very well. You can do the same thing on Facebook Live sales. I have a good friend who's an admin of a huge Facebook pin group, and he goes for 8 hours at a time, and he tells me he sells thousands of dollars worth of pins in those 8 hours. So that seems to be the way to do it. There's something about this live format that really, I think, gets people engaged, and several reputable live sale people have very creative, cool ways of making it fun. You know, they have like little games or trivia that award people pins, and that's great. So Instagram live sales really tend to do it. On Facebook, I think it's also good. Every time I've posted something for sale on Facebook, but a big post, meaning that I post most of my traders, like 100 traders at a time or something, then I usually I've always gotten a sale that way. And that way you're able to avoid eBay fees. So so eBay is another way to sell your pins. The benefit is that you have the world as your audience, basically. So, you know, international people, the whole country, and because despite social media being so ubiquitous and everyone using it, not everyone is on Facebook and not everybody is on Instagram, but most people do have access to online, so meaning, you know, eBay. So I think eBay would be a good way to sell pins, but you do have to pay eBay fees. And most people, you know, don't have this as a business, and they can't write off these fees. For example, like, you know, I have Diablopins as a registered business with the state, so I can write off those expenses. But for most people, they can't. So it's just a matter of, you know, you got to balance it. I think it's worth it. If you have a very valuable pin that you know is probably going to sell well, then sell it on eBay. And that, you know, because the eBay fees start to add up the more you sell. So, you know, for every item you sell, there's going to be a fee associated with it. So if you have one big expensive item, don't worry about it. But if you have loads of pins that you want to sell and that you think you're going to sell, then yes, you'll have your eBay fees. I would love to have discussions about anything important that pertains to our community. So whether it be the value of pins, what certain terms mean, scrappers, fakes, and even fantasy pins. Fantasy pins, we haven't even talked about that. I mean, my God, I got so many fantasy pins. It became an offshoot of pin trading, but I think fantasy pins are a fun way in pin trading. And of course, Disney doesn't like it. And there's also the aspect of people making money off Disney's intellectual property. But I think it is a creative way to show people's skills and to make us enjoy this hobby more. And I'd love to show you my fantasy pins. There's just so much to share, and I hope to do more of it. And I tend to frown upon trading like Grail. Like, I'm not going to trade a Gomes or an LD100 pin for a fantasy pin. I'm just not going to do that. I mean, some people would do that, I suppose, but to me, you know, the authentic, rare, old Disney pins have such value compared to even some of these fantasy pins that may just be huge and gorgeous. I mean, I'd rather either just buy it or maybe trade a little bit more in bulk to get that. But you're gonna find different opinions about that. Thank you so much for joining in. I think I've reached 5,000 followers, and that just means the world to me. I feel like I want to keep delivering and sharing the collection and sharing our collective enthusiasm for this hobby. It's just wonderful. I think it only provides, it's a joy, and there's a lot of things going on in our world, and anything that can bring joy to your life, welcome it. And I think this is a hobby that does it, and I'm happy to contribute to that. So thank you very much for joining in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.